This is lesson 7 for the chapter Morphology of Flowering Plants. In this video, I am going to discuss about the reproductive parts of a flower. In the last class, the accessory or the non-essential part of a flower was discussed. So in this video, the essential parts of a flower, that is the androecium and the gynoecium, will be discussed. At first, let's discuss about the androecium. Androecium, it is the male reproductive part of a flower, and this is the third hole of a flower. The individual unit of androecium is called stamen, and each stamen consists of an anther and a filament. These anthers, they are the fertile part of the stamen, and it is supported by a stalk which is called as the filament. Usually, all anthers are bilobed and contains 4 sporangia or pollen sacs, but sometimes some may possess only 1 lobe and only 2 microsporangia. The microsporangia or the pollen sacs are the chambers where the pollen grains are formed, and these pollen grains, they bears male gametes. Now, on the basis of the position of this stamen or the occurrence of stamen within a flower, it have certain terminologies. One important terminology, it is epipetalous. When the stamens, they are attached to the petals of a flower, then that type of stamen is called as epipetalous. Epi, that means upper part of the petal, which is the individual unit of corolla, and such type of stamens are called as epipetalous stamen. Another terminology related to this is epiphyllous. Now, in the same way, when the stamens are attached to the parent of a flower, I hope all of you remember what is parent. That is when the calyx and the corolla, it fuses to form one structure, then that is called as parent, which is found in case of some of the flowers as discussed in the last class. Now, when the stamens, they are attached to the parent, then it is called as epiphyllous. Now, based on that, again there comes another 3 terms, and these are monodelphous, diadelphous and polydelphous. As in case of the diagram shown here, the condition, it is of a monodelphous stamen. That means that all the stamens, they are arranged in one bundle, and such it is called as monodelphous stamen. Similarly, when the stamens, they mate 2 bundles, then it is called diadelphous, and when there are many stamens, when many bundles of this stamen within a flower, then it is called as polydelphous. Similarly, on the basis of the connective, also the stamens, they can be divided in many ways, and this connectivity is the reason where a portion of the anther is connected to the filament, or this is the joining point of the filament and the anther. Now, on the basis of that connective, the stamens that is regarded as dorsifixed, basifixed, adnate and versatile stamen. Dorsifixed, that is when the filament it is attached to the anther, or it forms the connective with the anther in the dorsal side of the anther just above the basal point, then it is called as dorsifixed. When it is fixed or it forms the connective in just the basal part of the anther, then it is called as basifixed. Adnate, it is when the whole filament it separates the two lobes of the anther, then it is called as adnate, and the two anther lobes they gets completely separated by the filament. And the last one, that is versatile, when the connective or the fusion point of the anther and the filament that is just at the middle of the anther, then it is called as versatile. Now let's come to the next part, essential part of the flower, which is the gynoecium. This gynoecium, this is the female reproductive part of a flower, and this is regarded as the innermost hole or the fourth hole of a flower. The individual unit of the gynoecium are called as pistil or carpel, and each carpel they possesses three parts, that is the stigma, style and the ovary. Stigma is the receptive part of the pollen grains, and as it is sticky, it possesses sticky substances in order to catch the pollen grain. Therefore, it is called as stigma. Style, that is the connection in between the stigma and the ovary. And ovary, it is the basal swollen part of the carpel, which bears one or several ovules, and these ovules they are regarded as the megasporangia because it bears the female gametes. Now again, on the basis of the different patterns of gynoecium that are arranged within a flower, there are certain terminologies. As for example, apocarpus, when the carpels they are free from each other, then it is called as apocarpus. Pistil or carpel, when the carpels they are fused with each other, as in case of a China rose, so they are fused with each other, then it is called as syncarpus. Gynoecium or syncarpus pistil or syncarpus carpels. Now let's come to the inner part of the ovary. As we know that the ovary it bears ovules, and these ovules they are attached to the ovary with the help of some cushion like parenchymatous tissue which is called as the placenta. And this placenta, the arrangement of the placenta, that is not same for all the types of flowers. The arrangement of this placenta from where the ovule gets developed or from where the ovule it is attached within the ovary or arranged within the ovary. So this whole process or arrangement it is called as placentation. What is placentation? Placentation refers to the pattern of attachment of ovules within the ovary. This ovary, it develops into fruits when the flowers gets matured, and the ovules within it that develops into seeds. So we have seen many arrangement of such seeds within fruits. As for example, in case of papaya, that is a different one. In case of watermelon, that is a different one. Then in case of mango, this whole arrangement of seeds during their younger stage, when they are attached to the placenta and they are in an arranged form, so that is only called as placentation. Now let's come to the types of placentation. The first type, that is called as marginal placentation. In case of marginal placentation, the placenta forms a ridge along through the ventral suture of the ovary, and the ovules are borne on the ridge to form two rows. Now here, a ridge is developed at the upper side of the ovary, that is towards the margin of the ovary, where the ovules are borne over that ridge or over that separation, which forms two rows of the ovary wall, and therefore such type of placentation, it is called as marginal placentation. And this marginal placentation, it can be seen within the pea, sweet peas, or any such kind of leguminous plants or from the family Fabaceae. Then next comes axial placentation. In case of axial placentation, the placenta is axial and the ovules are attached to it in the multilocular ovary. Now, there are certain chambers within the ovary, and these chambers where the ovules are born, these are called as the locules. Say for example, in case of the marginal placentation that we have discussed just now, so there is only one locule, that is, there is only one chamber. Now there are some other types of ovules where there are many chambers, and therefore it is called as multilocular. So there, the placenta, they are formed on the axial part. That means they forms a connection in between the locules, and the ovules are attached to those axial point, and in that case it is called as axial placentation, as for example in case of lemon. Then thirdly comes the parietal placentation. In case of parietal placentation, the ovules are developed on the inner wall of the ovary, so that is generally peripheral in their arrangement, and it is single chambered. That means there is only one ovule or only one locule, not ovule, but there is only one locule, but there may be several locules, but due to the formation of a false septum, it becomes two chambered, as for example in case of mustard fruit. Now comes the basal placentation. So there the placenta develops at the base of the ovary, wherein a single ovule is attached to it, and there we can see in case of coconut, mango, etc., where they bears the basal placentation, which bears only a single ovule and there is only a single locule, and there the base of the ovary that bears the placenta, and over the placenta the ovule is formed. Say for example in case of coconut, mango, etc. And lastly comes the free central placentation. Now in case of free central placentation, as it is said that the ovules are born on the central axis and the septa are absent. So that is the free central placentation, where the ovules, they will be just born at the center of the ovary, and there is no separation over that, and it will again be unilocular. That means only one locule is there. So these are the 5 types of placentation that we can observe in case of the different types of flowers or the different types of ovaries on a flower. And as I have said that the fruits, they are the outcome of a mature ovary, and the seeds within the fruits, so these are the outcome of a mature ovule. Now let's discuss about what are seeds and what are fruits and its types. Seeds are the matured ovules within the ovary, and the fruits are the matured ovaries of the gynoecium of the flower. When fertilization takes place, the inner and the outer structure of the ovary, that means the ovules and the ovary, that undergoes some changes, and till its maturation it becomes the fruits and the seeds. That is why we can say that the ovary that gets developed into fruits and the ovules that gets developed into seeds. Now let's see what are the types of seeds. There are two types of seeds, that is albuminous seed and non-albuminous seed. What is albuminous seed? During the development of the embryo, the endosperm nourishes the developing embryo, and when the endosperm persists in the seed, it is called albuminous or endospermic seed. So here it is said that we know that during the development of the embryo, endosperm, it generally nourishes, or the endosperm is the fruit-laden tissue for the developing embryo. And during the development of the embryo till its germination stage, the endosperm, it gets used for feeding the embryo. Now in that case, sometimes in some seeds the endosperm, it still persists, and such type of seed is called as albuminous or endospermic seed. Examples are rice, wheat, castor, coconut, etc. And what is ex-albuminous or non-endospermic seed? So these are the seeds where the embryo completely utilizes the endosperm, and here the endosperm is totally eaten up by the developing embryo. That is why it is called as non-endospermic or ex-albuminous seeds. Examples are pea, gram, kidney beans, etc. So we can see these two types of seeds on the basis of the development of the endosperm. There are three types of fruits. The first one is the true fruit. When the fruits are from the ovary after the act of fertilization, they are called as true fruit. For example, mango, tomato, brinjal, chili, etc. These are all called as true fruits because they are the result of fertilization, and after fertilization when the ovary grows or develops, that type of fruit is called as true fruit. Then come the next type of fruit, which is called as false fruit. When fruits are formed from the calyx, thalamus, receptacle other than the ovary, they are called as false fruit. After the act of fertilization, the ovary, it doesn't grow much in its size, or it does not develop further, but the accessory parts that are present in the flower, such as the calyx, thalamus, receptacle, which are nearby the ovary, and they shows rapid development along with the reduced ovary. Such type of fruits are called as false fruit. For example, apple, pear, strawberry, etc. In the case of apple, the true fruit that is inside, and the edible part that is actually the thalamus. Similarly, it is for pears and strawberry. Now the third type of fruit, it is called as the parthenocarpic fruit. Now some fruits are formed without fertilization directly from the ovary. That means the egg, it is not fertilized by a male gamete, and without fertilization when the ovary itself it develops into a fruit, such type of fruit is called as parthenocarpic fruit. And normally this type of fruits, they are seedless, and such type of fruits are banana, grapes, etc. Now let's come to the inner structure of fruit when seen through a longitudinal section. So here you have seen the longitudinal section of two fruits. One is the mango and other one is the lemon. So it is in case of any kind of fruit that the ovary wall of the fruit that develops to form the pericarp of the fruit. And the pericarp, it develops into three distinct structures, and these three distinct structures are the epicarp, mesocarp and the endocarp. Epicarp, that is the skin of the fruit, or you can say the outer part of the fruit. Then comes the middle fleshy part, which is the mesocarp, and the inner membranous part, that is the endocarp. So here, in case of these two fruits, we can see the inner structures or the distribution of these layers that is quite different along with their nature. Say for example, in case of the mango, their epicarp, it is smooth, whereas the epicarp of lemon, it is leathery. The mesocarp, in case of the mango, that is quite juicy and fleshy, whereas in case of the lemon, it is generally in the form of white aggregate, which is also called as the rind. And in case of the endocarp, here in case of mango, it is membranous fiber-like structure, whereas in case of the lemon, it is in the form of capsules inside it. So depending upon the distribution of this pericarp layer, there are different types of fruits, such as the mango, it is called as the drupe, lemon, that is called as the hesperidium, then pumpkin, cucumber, these are called as the pepo. So based on the distribution of the pericarp and the nature of the existence of these pericarp layers, that is epicarp, mesocarp and endocarp, there are different kind of fruits that we can see. So development of fruit, it is stimulated by the auxin secretion in the ovary, and we can see that the fruit that gets developed and it gets ripened, and this ripening, it is because of a plant hormone which is called as ethylene and cytokinin. So after the fruit is matured, the physiology process of the ripening that generally starts, and in this process the starch that is converted into sugar. So in that way we can have different colors, taste and texture of the fruit that was described just now. So now let's come to the significance of seeds and fruits. The significance of seeds in case of flowering plants. So seeds, they have an easy dispersal mechanism. It stores nutrition for the growing embryo in the form of endosperm, and also it can protect the embryo by its seed coat. And actually the success of the angiosperms to become the dominant plant in case of the plant kingdom, it is due to the production of the seeds. Whereas the significance of fruits are, fruits, it protects the immature seeds from injury and adverse climate. The mature fruits become bright colored only to attract seed dispersal, and the immature fruits can have chemical defense against animals, as they have a repellent taste, and that protects the seed from the animals as the defense mechanism. With the discussion of what is flower, the different parts of a flower and the related terminologies along with the seeds and the fruits, this part is complete.